Have you ever driven so late into the night that the lines on the road start to blur together? Your eyes get heavy, the steady hum of the engine becomes hypnotic, and your exhausted brain starts to play tricks on you in the shadows. That was the exact situation for a 20-year-old driver late one August. He was on a solo road trip, heading north from the heavy traffic of Southern California all the way back home to Seattle. Eventually, he pulled off the highway somewhere in Northern California. He checked into a cheap, cash-only motel. It was a bleak spot, attached to a liquor store and surrounded by an open drug market. At the time, the driver was struggling with severe substance abuse. Almost immediately after walking into his room, he crushed and snorted 20 milligrams of hydrocodone. Hydrocodone is a powerful prescription opioid painkiller used for moderate to severe pain. He washed that down with several glasses of whiskey and smoked marijuana, pushing himself to the absolute brink of passing out. Through that heavy haze, he realized he hadn't eaten all day. Finding nothing close by, he made a highly dangerous decision. He grabbed his keys and drove 15 minutes to a McDonald's, completely intoxicated. A simple craving for fast food set him on the road. But with his nervous system flooded with depressants, he had built the perfect trap for a terrifying encounter with the unknown. The drive back to the motel was a constant physical fight to keep his eyes open. He was alone on an empty stretch of highway bordered by tall, unlit grass. Less than a second later, a young, naked blonde woman burst from the tall grass, screaming wildly and sprinting toward the road. Because he was driving fast, the encounter lasted only a fraction of a moment. But in that tiny window, the driver and the screaming woman locked eyes. He instantly jerked the steering wheel, nearly losing control of his car. A massive surge of adrenaline hit him, completely snapping him out of his drug-induced stupor. That single second forced an impossible question into his mind. Did he actually just see a woman running for her life? Or was his heavily intoxicated brain breaking down right there on the highway? Let's pause right here and look at what happens next. The obvious reaction to seeing someone in danger is to slam on the brakes or call the authorities. He did neither. This chart shows extreme intoxication suppressing reality processing. His flooded brain reflexively doubted his own eyes. Then came the fear. Calling the police meant they'd find an intoxicated driver carrying narcotics. The threat of a DUI outweighed everything else. Faced with those options, he made a choice. He prioritized his own freedom, convinced himself the woman wasn't real, and kept driving until he reached the safety of his motel room. The drugs that distorted his reality were the exact same reason he couldn't stop to find out the truth. The chemical wall protecting him from jail also prevented him from helping someone who might have been in serious danger. The next morning, on August 25th, the driver woke up and immediately consumed more alcohol and marijuana. He sat in his room watching local crime shows, intensely waiting to see if a body was discovered on the highway. There was nothing. No missing person reports, no breaking news. He took this complete lack of evidence as definitive proof that he really did hallucinate the entire thing. Relieved, he checked out and continued his drive north along Highway 101. Along the way, he repeatedly hit a concentrated marijuana dab pen while behind the wheel. Distracted by the ocean view, he missed his intended exit. He decided to take the next turnoff, which accidentally led him down a narrow, miles-long dirt road deep into an isolated forest. In broad daylight, at the end of that road, he suddenly saw 20 to 30 people staring back at him from the woods. They were wearing red robes resembling Ku Klux Klan hoods. Terrified, he slammed on the brakes, frantically whipped his car around, and sped away. This second encounter effectively severed any remaining confidence in his own observations. Whether it was a real group in the woods or just a chemical trick, the boundary between the truth and the driver's own mind had completely collapsed. He spent the final hazy leg of his journey making random stops along the quiet coast near places like Clam Beach, constantly pushing north. Eventually, he made it back safely to the familiar skyline of Seattle, putting an end to the physical road trip. But arriving home safely didn't erase the psychological weight of the trip. He was left haunted by the knowledge that he had potentially left someone behind in the dark that night. He was a witness so heavily compromised by substances and fear that he essentially functioned as a ghost passing by a tragedy, unable to offer the help a sober person might have provided. The encounter remains a blur of high beams and tall grass, a moment where the fear of a DUI and the haze of a high allowed a potential life or death emergency to fade into a convenient, quiet hallucination.